Training camp is officially open, so let's talk about it on today's Locked on Blue Jackets.
You're Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I just want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, I mostly want to talk about training camp today, but there are some things that kind of came out in yesterday's press conference with Waddell and Dean Evason that I wanted to talk about a little bit, and also what has come out in terms of Johnny Gaudreau and what they're going to be doing for home opener, the preliminary parts of the season, and for the rest of the season as well, because the Blue Jackets released that I think early yesterday as well. So I want to talk about that first, and then we'll talk about training camp, which is happening kind of as I actively record this. So no doubt something will happen in the middle of this episode, but we'll get to that in a minute. So lots of questions about what the Blue Jackets are going to be doing this season to kind of honor Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau as best they can. Lots of talk about, retiring jersey number, or I think there's a statue being built outside of the Saddle Dome in Calgary, and things like that. There was a lot of conversation about what is the best way to honor Gaudreau, and a lot of the conversation from the players specifically yesterday was, we're going to honor him by going into this season and we're going to have fun and we're going to play hockey because that's what he would have wanted, which I love. Some number switches on jerseys. No one has taken 13, which doesn't surprise me necessarily. It looks like everyone's going to be keeping their usual number. Adam Fantilli has switched back to 19, presumably with the departure of Liam Foodie, who left. I think he left last time too late for Fantilli to change his number before the start of the season, but he's switching back to 19. And Jake Christensen is going from 23 to 2, presumably so Sean Monahan can have 23. I feel like at this point, Sean Monahan could ask this organization to fly him to the moon, and they would. But that's beside the point. So no jersey, no 13 for any of this team this season. Potentially going forward, I don't know, but I do know that one thing is Johnny Gaudreau's jersey will be hanging up in the locker room. He's going to have a stall every single home and away game this season. I know that Dean Evason talked about how he wanted to reshuffle the locker room. He was worried about, quote, positional cliques. So he has decided that the room is going to be shuffled up, and people are going to be sitting next to new people. And I do know that Sean Monahan is going to get to sit next to Johnny Gaudreau in the locker room, which I love. But yeah, keeping his stall in the locker room, I think, is a really great idea. Means that he's going to be with them all season. I love that. And then they announced preliminary plans to honor and remember Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau prior to and during the 2024 National Hockey League season. This is straight from BlueJackets.com. So beginning with the club's first preseason game, they are going to be wearing a special sticker on their helmets. Sticker is blue with gray trim, features Gaudreau and 2 doves between the numbers 13, which Johnny wore, and 21, which Matthew wore in white. Their first preseason game, they're going to have a moment of silence, and the 50-50 raffle is going to be open for all 4 preseason games through the second intermission of the regular season home opener, and proceeds from those 5 games, I believe, will go to the John and Matthew Gaudreau Foundation. And then beginning with the first regular season on Thursday, October 10th. Blue Jackets players are going to be wearing a patch featuring Johnny's number 13 on their jerseys. And then they're going to be celebrating the memory of the Gaudreau brothers in their home opener on October 15th. All fans in attendance that night will receive a 13 patch like the ones players will be wearing on their jersey. So if anyone gets one and they don't want it, you know who it should go to. Traditional opening night festivities, opening night plaza party, the blue carpet, etc. They're going to be happening in the second home game. And there's going to be additional details kind of planned for both games kind of later on. But I really like this, having the sticker on the helmet for both brothers, having a 13 patch on the jersey, I think is a really great idea as well. The fact that there are still plans to be made makes me wonder, is there something else to come here? But it really sounds like the Blue Jackets are going to be going into this season thinking of Johnny and doing this for Johnny. And again, that was kind of echoed in Don Waddell's speech, in his press conference, in Everson's press conference comments, and then a handful of players spoke to the media as well. I know Werenski, Monahan, and Jenner all talked about how, Gaudreau wouldn't have wanted them to be sad. He would have wanted them to come to the rink and have fun and play hockey, and so that's what they're going to do. And I think that, more than anything else, is a really great way to honor Gaudreau, because at the end of the day, he loved hockey more than basically anything in the world, with the exception of his family. And I think that the best way that they can honor him is to have the best season they possibly can. So I love that. I am all for that. One other comment that they made about kind of it, just in terms of not necessarily about Gaudreau, but to kind of fill the hole that Gaudreau has left behind. They talked a little bit about they are looking for players available in trades. They're probably not going to be signing another free agent. They're not going to be going after any RFAs that are unsigned, no offer sheets, anything like that. It sounds like they're going to wait for training camp to happen and then see who maybe they can get someone on the waiver wire. Maybe they can get someone, a lot of teams are in kind of cap trouble. I know the Maple Leafs are looking to move on from a guy like Nick Robertson. He's really the only name that I can think of off the top of my head that might be kind of available. I still maintain that if you are going to trade, you have to do it with futures and picks, essentially. I don't know how you can take anyone in this room out of this room at this stage of the season starting, at this stage of grief, etc. Which, on that note, kind of this, I wasn't going to talk about this, but someone mentioned it when I was talking about this. This might be the best place for Sean Monahan to be, because we all know how close he was with Johnny Gaudreau, and having a room full of people who are also going through that, as opposed to him, signing in Seattle or wherever, where, there were guys that knew Johnny, and, this is kind of rippled throughout the league, but this might be the best place for him to kind of grieve as a group instead of him just kind of being alone and dealing with it. So we'll see what that means for Monahan specifically, and for kind of the group as a whole, but something might happen this season. I talked about it a little bit. I don't know if I said this on mic or off mic, but the Blue Jackets are either going to finish 32nd in the standings or first in the standings, and probably nowhere in between that. And I kind of said it tongue in cheek, but I do stand by that a little bit. And I think we are really going to see, as training camp progresses, the first preseason game I think is on Wednesday, so just under a week away. We're going to see what this team is made of, I think. And that's kind of exciting in and of itself. So take a quick break. And then when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about training camp. I want to talk about the group splits. I want to talk about potential line combinations, things like that, all coming up in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. first I've got to tell you about FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. They're America's #1 sportsbook for a reason. Well, we've got a little something different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you're going to be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. So if you are an Ohio person who is a fan of a not Ohio team, this is the deal for you. Just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook, and get your free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And why don't you bet on the NFL while you are there? You can also bet on the NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, all of that. But if I was you, I would bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket while I am there. Once again, that is FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking about training camp, which opened up earlier today. Group 1 is currently on the ice. There are some line combinations happening. It's obviously very, very early, but I do think it's always kind of fun to talk about, like, hey, way too early line combinations. So Group 1 is on the ice right now, and that is consisting of Boone Jenner, Sean Monahan, and Kirill Marchenko as a line, Mathieu Olivier, Sean Crowley, and Owen Sillinger as a line, which is a really interesting line that I want to talk about in a little bit more detail. Luca Pinelli, Luca Del Barbaluz, Mikhail Pucha, and then Trey Fix-Wolansky, Pano Fimis, who got invited from his strong prospect tournament performance, and Tyler Peddle. And then on defense, we've got Werenski, Severson, Christensen, Harris, Svozil, Ceulemans, and Holm Morelli. Now, I believe that's Ole Julian Bjorkvik Holm on the bottom pairing with Luca Morelli. A lot of Lucas on in Group 1. Everyone else is in the other group, so they'll be on the ice probably in about an hour's time. We'll be able to see those lines. But right now, interesting. If we take this as like the top 6 of this group and the top 6 of the other group are probably what's gonna be the top 6 to start, the top 12 to start the season. Excuse me. Jenna, Monahan, Marchenko, Olivier Crowley, and Owen Sillinger is a really interesting addition to that. Obviously, Justin Danforth is kind of being held out of practice and line combinations and things like that. They're expecting him back sooner than expected. I believe they got some good news from that yesterday. But if you have that as your top 6 and then you look at Group 2, the other 6 forwards, you've got Sillinger, Voronkov, Fantilli, Van Riemsdyk, Johnson, and Brindley. I may have said Brindley twice. Chinikov is the name that I was missing. That, I believe, is 7. So we'll see what goes on there. Obviously, the addition of Van Riemsdyk is an interesting one, but there's some holes in the lineup there. Yeah, that is your top 13 forwards as of right now, and then defensemen in the other group. You've got Johnson, Matejchuk, Provorov, Gabranson, and Jiricek all in that group. So there's 5 defensemen that are potential NHL guys. So again, interested to see what happens. The first couple of days of camp, I feel like it's difficult to predict anything because it's kind of just like, right, let's get on the ice, let's start skating, let's see who's got what, let's see who's been practicing and who's been skating hard over the summer, you know? So once the guys go back to juniors, once the PTOs get released, the guys get sent down to Cleveland. I'm looking at, for example, I've lost the tweet. Where is it? Here we go. So once guys like Pinelli, Del Barbaluz, Pucha, Fix-Wolansky, Peddle, Fimis, Svozil, Ceulemans, Holm, and Morelli are all gone, and potentially Sillinger as well. I do wonder if he is just a stand-in for Danforth. But once those guys are out of the picture, then we'll really start to see, right, okay, who's playing with who's got a real chance to make a difference and potentially make this team. Evason talked yesterday in his press conference as well about, listen, no one is a lock to make this roster. Obviously that's a lie. There's probably, a dozen players that are a lock to make this roster, but he's talking about, if you want to get ice time, if you want to make this team, you have to show me that you want it, So I will be interested to see as the roster gets smaller, who is getting the opportunities. Like I said, Owen Sillinger on that quote unquote top 6. If you are watching on YouTube, you will see my air quotes just at the bottom of the screen there. I like Sillinger's game a lot. I thought he was excellent for Cleveland. Last season, signed an NHL contract on the back of his season with Cleveland. So he's a guy that I think is probably in that conversation to maybe try and crack that fourth line, crack that bottom 6, with uncertainty about Danforth, with, again, holes in the roster. There's definitely a chance there for him. So, for my money, it's probably between him and Malatesta to be the Cleveland guy that makes the squad up top. But I'll be interested to see how he performs kind of in his first look at NHL level action as opposed to AHL. Because like I said, I liked him a lot in the AHL last season. He has that kind of Boone Jenner quality of you can play him anywhere. He'll play top line wing. He'll play fourth line center. You could probably put him on D and he would do okay. I wouldn't put him in goal maybe, but he played up and down the lineup basically all season long. And I know that Trent Vogelhuber thinks very highly of Owen Sillinger, so we'll see what happens there. Plus, it's kind of fun when you have brothers on the same team. One last thought about this grouping specifically. Boone Jenner is on the wing right now, which I love. And again, very early on, but it seems to me like they're going to be going with for their top 4 centers, Monahan, Corrali, Fantilli, and Sillinger. Not in that order, obviously. Fantilli and Sillinger are in the other group right now. Again, we'll see what happens with their groupings as they take the ice. Again, probably just about as I finish uploading this podcast, probably. But this was the time I had to record today, so this is the time that we're doing it. Jenner on the wing is great. I love to see it. I think that if you put Jenner on the wing and you keep him there, like you're going to see dividends from that. I think you're going to see success. And I think that's great. I think that you'll get more from Jenner on the wing than you would kind of on the you would at center. Quite frankly, he's done a fine job. He has done a perfectly cromulent job as center the past couple of seasons, but I'm really excited to see him get back to the wing and get back to kind of that performance that we know that we can get from Boone Jenner, because like his most successful season was, I want to say, the year that they had the All-Star game. So that would have been 2014, 2015. I'm just pulling up his stats now. 2015, 2016. He had 30 goals that season, career high in points. And he was doing it on 16 and a half minutes. So put him back on the wing and let's see him succeed, quite frankly. So that's what I'm hoping for. Kind of one of the things I'm hoping for from this training camp anyway, is for him to really kind of emerge as an effective winger as opposed to having to play center because the Blue Jackets don't have any adults that can play center. They do now. They have at least 1.5 adults that can play center. So I love that. We're going to take another quick break, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the defense. And again, very, very early to start thinking about the defense, but we'll talk about it anyway here on Lockon Blue Jackets. First, I've got to talk about GameTime. GameTime is the only ticketing app I use now. There are others, obviously, but I don't use them anymore because GameTime is so much better. It is all I use when I'm in California. My fiance and I go to Sharks games a lot, and they've got deals that actually make it cheaper the closer it gets to puck drop, which is great because sometimes we'll finish work and we'll decide, hey, let's go to a Sharks game tonight. We don't have plans. We'll just hop on GameTime, and because the Sharks were real bad last season, we could get tickets for like $20 each. It was great. One of the things I like the most about GameTime is I can toggle a little button at the start, and it's going to show me all-in pricing. There's no surprise fees at checkout like other ticketing apps and ticketing websites, but you do have to turn that on. But once it is on, it is such a game changer, because now I don't get surprised when I hit the checkout and they're like, yeah, here is your $20 ticket and also your $13 fee at checkout. I'm not going to mention any names, but you know who I'm talking about. They also have the lowest price guarantee. So if you find tickets in your section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. All right, let's finish off on this Thursday episode of Locked On Blue Jackets with a quick chat about the defense, because for me, that is the big question mark right now. And I think, again, if we take the I talked about it a little bit earlier. If we take like the top 6 players from Group 1 and the top 6 players from Group 2, for the forwards, you should really take the top 3 defensemen, potentially the top 4 defensemen from Group 1, and then we'll take the top 4 defensemen from Group 1 and the top 4 from Group 2. So they've got Werenski and Severson playing together, and then they've got Christensen and Harris. They're not playing together, but like doing drills together, skating together. Werenski, Severson, Christian, Harris. That, again, is a pretty expected top 4 for Group 1. I don't love Severson and Werenski together, but again, it's very early, and if I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, right, okay, well, you've got Werenski, Severson, and Jordan Harris as your top 3, and then Christensen kind of as the surprise extra guy, and then you go to the other group. I ran through the names earlier, but I'll run through them again. Guys of note: Jack Johnson, Matejchuk, Ivan Provorov, Eric Branson, David Jiricek. And then the other guys, they've got Cole Clayton, Charlie Elick, and Samuel Kanasco. Those 3 guys are not going to be on the roster. Elick is going to go back to juniors. Clayton and Kanasco are going to go back to the Monsters. That still gives you 9 defensemen. Like, that's the thing, is you're going to have to cut 9 defensemen down to 6, maybe 7. And that's going to be a tough job. I think, I still maintain that it's going to be a case of, I think Christensen goes back down to the Monsters, and I think it's probably you choose between one of Matejchuk and Jiricek, depending on what the rest of the lineup looks like. It looks like Harris is playing on the right side, which he can play both sides. He plays best on the left, is what Habs fans have told me, and like they've watched him the most, so they would know. But if they're putting him on the right in order to put Matejchuk on the left, then that means that Jiricek is likely going to be going down for another year of the Monsters, which we'll see how that goes. On the flip side, if you assume that Harris is probably going to get penciled into Provorov's spot, do you send Matejchuk down? He's obviously waivers exempt. He hasn't had much NHL experience. He hasn't had any NHL experience yet, actually. So we'll see what's going on there. But I am more interested in the Group 2 roster than I am in the Group 1 roster. I'm not going to lie. Again, like the forwards, just to go back to it, they've got, I think, 7 forwards in Group 2. They've got Sillinger, Voronkov, Fantilli, Van Riemsdyk, Brindley, Chinikov, and Johnson. James Malatesta is also there as kind of a wild card guy. But it feels like Group 2 is a much heavier roster of young guys fighting for their spot, and then the older players are on Group 1 for forward anyway. With the exception of like James Van Riemsdyk, who I suspect is probably going to play the adult in the role of Group 2. But it feels like there's more NHL guys in Group 2, and that means that I think Group 2 is going to be harder to whittle down. So we'll see what's going on with Group 2 kind of as and when they get on the ice, even, because they have not even stepped on the ice yet. Unless they have done it in the 20 minutes since I have been talking. They have not. So who knows? We'll go from there. But initial thoughts on the training camp. Rosters, interesting, I think is my main thought. Really hard to read into stuff now when there is, I think, 55 players. They've got 8 goalies, so like impossible to read into all that kind of stuff. But I suspect we'll see some cuts pretty early because the first preseason game, I think I said it was Wednesday, and I lied. It's actually on Monday, so they've got 4 days of practice. I don't imagine they'll make many cuts before then. They might make a couple, but I think we might see that preseason game. I think is going to be interesting in terms of not only who plays, but who plays with who. So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see what's going on. Obviously, they're keeping an eye on camps around the league to see if they can add another forward. Although I counted 13 NHL forwards, so we'll see kind of what comes from that as and when things happen. And that's kind of all I've got for today. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit more about Group 2 probably once we've seen them on the ice, and maybe we'll have some surprises to talk about as well. So all of that coming up on tomorrow's episode. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We are over on YouTube and on SiriusXM. I have been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. I think that's all of my spiel. Thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.